Shorthand English speed 150 words per minute. I am grateful to the Education Minister of Maharashtra State for having agreed to inaugurate this conference and to welcome the guests. Looking to the number of persons who are present and who will be taking part in the deliberations of this national seminar on liquidation of illiteracy, which has been organized by the Planning Commission and the Maharashtra government jointly for the purpose of focusing attention on the problems confronting the country, on undertaking a comprehensive program of adult education during the fourth plan. It might be called a conference. Some persons may wonder why we should have called for this seminar at a time like this when all our thoughts are occupied with the problems of defense and other developmental problems associated with it. We thought over this but nevertheless thought it fit to convene this seminar because of our basic belief that defense and development are both closely related with adult literacy and adult education. It is indeed difficult for a country which consists of persons who are not able to communicate with each other. Programs of adult education are therefore especially relevant in the rural areas where there is not the same kind of intensive knowledge or the same kind of intelligent interest in national problems, even more so when the bulk of the population is not literate as in urban areas. Obviously, in the rural areas which represent the bulk of the country, if we want to develop a feeling of what we call an intelligent and purposive nationalism, feelings of emotional integration, understanding of what India is and what its different parts stand for, how they are linked together, it is impossible to do it merely by organizing a series of lectures which all the villagers will attend. Literacy is the most important instrument for communication, and therefore from the point of view of defense itself, it is essential that our adults in the rural areas and women more than men should be furnished with the equipment which will enable them to understand what is happening in the country and to develop feelings of integration and, as I said, purposive and intelligent nationalism. When we are discussing the relevance of adult education in a period of national emergency, we must remember that men who are mobilized for service in the armed forces have to be supported by people who live behind the front. Many of the recruits in the armed forces come from the rural areas. Therefore, it is important that the rural area should be well informed on the whole subject of what the fighting is all about. This cannot be done merely by word of mouth. It has got to be done through written communication, through posters, through pamphlets, or through other written materials. And if the written material is to be understood, it cannot be done without literacy. We must also remember that in the present context, the country has to go all out to develop economic self-reliance and mobilize all its economic resources for meeting its consumption requirements. For this purpose, maximum utilization of the manpower resources of this country can be a major instrument. One lesson we learned in the last few months is that we have not been making enough use of our manpower in this country. Our economic development and our plans and our programs have been far too much oriented to dependence on foreign machinery and foreign imports of various kinds. While it is important that we must industrialize, mechanize and go in for sophisticated and modern ways of production, still the fact remains that from the point of view of self-reliance, we have a very big place for the utilization of manpower as such. This means in turn the imparting of skills, ability and a capacity for disciplined and cooperative work. The proportion of literature in this country to the adult population is one of the lowest in the world, not only as compared to the developed countries but even as compared to the underdeveloped countries. If we look at the literacy in China and that in India, I must confess with a great sense of shame that the Chinese have made a much greater advance in the matter of literacy than what we have been able to do in this country. For all practical purposes, what we call New China and New India came into existence more or less at about the same time.